Peymon who?
Matahede.
Peymon Latahede. Who is he?
Never paid taxes in 30 years. Fought the U.S. tax court and won.
See, I believe our rights come from God, not from government. Hello to my truth and freedom-seeking friends. I'm Peymon Matahede, the president of Freedom Law School, freedomlawschool.org, and for over 30 years, I've not filed and paid any federal income taxes, and showing Americans like you to do the same legally and safely. However, in this presentation, I'm not going to talk about income taxes. I'll talk about another important freedom justice issue, that is grand juries in America. Do you want an honest government in America? Well, grand jury is the answer. And this is the second part in 3-part series I'm doing on the topic of grand juries, what they are and why they are the key to restoring honesty in government. And I bring it about much more closer us, bring us closer to government of the people, by the people, and for we the people. Okay, I'm going to focus on judges a lot, but really the reason I do that is because everybody knows bad cops are out there. Bad government employees are out there. But I'm going to focus on judges and prosecutors. But because those guys are the holy priests of the system. Oh, almighty judge. He's like God, you know. Nobody can touch a judge. Nobody can judge a judge. Except the grand jury and the trial jury. Prosecutors, same thing. They have a lot of power to charge people with crimes, but who's going to charge the corrupt prosecutor with their crimes and convict them? The grand jury can accuse the prosecutor of his corruption, and the trial jury can convict him. So that's why I'm going to focus on those. But I'm going to start a little bit with the President of the United States example first. First of all, jury power is really one of the things I've been teaching about. Jurypower.org is a website you want to go to, okay? And here's what I educate Americans about the power of juries, especially grand jurors, which is a very little known topic. So everything is on this website. I'm going to expand this website. Here is several articles here under grand jury power. This website is going to get improved with much more on it by the time you see it, perhaps. So let's get started. Let's talk about something that has become now obvious a lot. Here we are in October 2025, and most Americans know that President Trump was indicted by a grand jury in New York, a federal grand jury, as well as a grand jury in the state of Georgia. These are all grand juries, technically, who indicted Donald Trump. Not the district attorney, which is a local prosecutor in every county in America has a district attorney. That's what they call usually district attorney. And in the federal government, the prosecutor is called, he's with the Department of Justice. He's a U.S. attorney. But same thing, they're prosecutors within the state system or the federal system. So just to remind you of that, take a look at this right here. This is an indictment in Fulton County, Georgia, filed August 14, 2023, against former President Donald John Trump, okay? And here it is, Fulton Superior Court, as you see it, okay? Now we go down to, go to all the charges are here on the right side, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go down to the bottom, number 37 through 40, and here it is, 41, signed by, oh, look at that, grand jury foreperson. The grand jurors pick one person amongst them to be like their organizer, basically called the foreperson. He doesn't own the grand jury. He's just one amongst them, among the equals, to keep things under control and run the administration organization of the grand jury. That's all that is. Nothing special about him beyond that. So here it is. You see down here? Yep. Fannie Willis, the infamous district attorney. She's down here also. So look at this other one. This is now in Florida federal court, okay? Southern District of Florida. You see that this was charged against United States of America versus Donald J. Trump, okay? And in this one, defendants, indictment, the grand jury charges, right? The grand jury makes the allegations that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, So here you see, again, go down on this thing. They're talking about Mar-a-Lago Club at the end. A true bill, foreperson of the grand jury signs it on behalf of the entire grand jury. That's how it's done. And Jack Smith, that's corrupt special counsel, United States Department of Injustice special counsel, has signed it. Okay? Now, this article, did you know that judges are not above the law, is the key article I'm going to be reading from, okay? And this is going to be just such eye-opening for most of you. Hang in there. I'm going to read it with you to make sure it's more very clear for all of you, okay? So there's a cover page on this thing that I'm not going to spend much time on this thing. I'm just going to read the article. It's just an overview of the whole immense power of the grand jurors, especially in California. California has the best grand jury system that I know of in America. About half the states have some kind of the grand jury system going on. And like California is county by county. Florida, several counties together have a grand jury. So in some states, you don't have grand juries at all. They abolished them. Federal government does have grand juries for any serious crimes, felonies. The federal government must get a grand jury indictment. Misdemeanors, which are offenses that have less than 1 year prison sentence, can be done without a grand jury indictment. The U.S. attorney, prosecutor can bring the charges. But anything serious, felonies, over 1 year prison sentence, has to be done in the federal system by the grand jury. Now, we covered all this last week, this overview. And remember, I showed you guys in part one that if you haven't seen it, you should see that now. Go watch part one first, and then come watch this, because that's an introduction to the amazing power that the grand jurors have to indict anybody, okay? I'm going to show you how they've done it against not just Trump, but also judges, okay, in federal and California system, okay? So here we are. We're going to go a little further on this thing. So I'm going to show you some court cases, okay? And I'm going to quote them. All these court cases, you see, I'm going to read to you. They're all actually in this document. They're actually attached. I wrote this thing about 1997 because I was fighting some corrupt judges in Orange County, California, in the city of Santa Ana. Okay, so that's how old these are. Back then, there was no internet to link things to, so I actually photocopied the law, underlined the relevant language, and attached them at the end of this article. The hyperlink to these court cases will be put on later on within the article soon, so you can click on it if you want directly. But the nice thing is, it's all there for you photocopied. So there's 2 pages we're going to read together, okay? Here's some cases I'm going to read from you guys. United States versus Hastings. Okay, this was the 11th Circuit Federal Court of Appeal, okay, in 1982. Okay, and Hastings was a federal judge who was indicted by the federal grand jury with conspiracy to obstruct acts for acts involving his acting as a judge. He was acting as a judge and found guilty of those charges by the trial jury. Now, some of you may know that judges have absolute immunity for any act they do as a judge, only civilly, which means you cannot, or anybody cannot sue them for money damages. But criminally, the judges can be charged from the crimes they commit, even as a judge. And that's the importance of this case. Okay? So here's on page 711, the court says, no man in this country is so high that he is above the law. Of course, you heard throughout Donald Trump, after him, the communist Democrats have said this many, many, many times. Well, here it is actually in the law. Okay? Every man who, by accepting government office, participates in its government functions is only the more strongly bound to submit to its supremacy. A judge, no less than any other man, is subject to the process of criminal law. End of quote. So the judges that are not immune. Now, here's some cases I'm going to give you from California because I lived in California at the time. But the grand juries everywhere in America, if one exists, they have the same powers, generally speaking, because it's the same institution that I covered last week to you, goes back 1,000 years to England. So what it is, its nature is basically the same, unless sometimes by law or constitution, they may have changed that or modified it depending on state laws. Okay? So here it is in this case called People versus Martin, okay, in 1982. And Judge Martin was indicted by a Los Angeles grand jury for conspiracy to obstruct and pervert justice while acting as a judge. And he was found guilty, sent to state prison, okay? And the Court of Appeal, in approving the conviction of Judge Martin, said that what Judge Martin is really saying is he should be treated more favorably because he was a judge. It was apparently the trial court's opinion that judges and attorneys should be punished like everyone else when they commit felonies. Yep. He was a judge that fixed tickets for his buddy, attorney, and got real tickets of his clients. The judge got paid off. He did that as a judge, but no less, he paid the price and went through prison for that. Okay? Here's another one called the People versus Hardiman. Okay? 1966. Okay? And Judge Hardiman was indicted by Los Angeles grand jury, for conspiracy to obstruct and pervert justice. See, back in the old days, California was a land of the free. It was not a communist entity we have today. They actually had a rule of we the people in California was a great model for America to follow. That's all changed. They start changing it, in the 80s in a big way. Okay, so Judge Hardiman did not even bother to claim that he's above the law, or make any frivolous claim that grand jury, as an arm of the court, has no jurisdiction over judges. Okay, Judge Hardiman knew better than that. Okay, he brought up a lot of issues, but did not challenge the right or power of the grand jury to indict him. See what happens. I approached the grand jury in Orange County to find these corrupt judges in Orange County, California. I was going after Judge Stanford and Commissioner Laird, Laird. They're probably both dead now. I think Stanton's alive. And this crooks, okay? And when I wrote the grand jury, they said, oh, we have no jurisdiction over judges. Which is a bunch of nonsense. That is a lie. The advisor of the grand jury, which in California is the local prosecutor or district attorney, tells them is not true at all. As you read, the judges can be indicted, even if they act as a judge, if what they do is a crime. Okay, so that's what's important for you to understand and see, and that the grand jury does have jurisdictional power over the judges and the prosecutors, who are the advisors of the grand jury. Okay, here's another case: Frazier versus Moffat. Okay, this is a 1951 California case. Okay, in this case, a citizen sued Judge Moffat in civil action. The suit was dismissed because judges had given themselves immunity from lawsuits when they acted as a judge. Right now, however, in so long as citizens and people that Judge Moffat is not above the law from his allegedly illegal acts, and if something could be done about Judge Moffat's illegal acts, the court on page 285 said this. The cases clearly hold that when a judicial officer violates a criminal statute, he is held to the same responsibility as any citizen. Under our system of government, judicial officers are responsible to the people or authorities constituted by the people for the manner in which they discharge the great trust of their office. That's right, where they act, how they act as a judge. If in exercise of powers with which they are clothed as ministers of justice, they act with partiality or corruptly, arbitrarily, or oppressively, they may be called to account for misdemeanor in office or for willful or corrupt conduct in office. See, they told the guy, look, you cannot sue them, but the prosecutor can come after them for misdemeanors and the grand jury can indict the judge. So try that, basically, they told him. You can do that route, okay? So, Frazier and Moffat also clearly conclude that a judge may be charged with a crime by the grand jury, as well as accused for corrupt misconduct in office under California Government Code Section 3060. And we're going to come back to this thing, okay, about Government Code Section 3060 in California. Okay, here's another case, Baird versus Justices Court, okay? It's a 1909 old California Court of Appeal decision, okay? And Judge Ward was indicted and convicted for misconduct in office, in his office of Justice of Peace. And the judgment was rendered removing him from the office for causes slated in the judgment. And the court said, a Justice of the Peace judge, if he subjected to himself to the penalty by any reason of misconduct or punishment thereof, is provided by Section 785 of the Penal Code, okay, which has been changed now to a different code section, which provided for removal from office of public officers of every description for willful or corrupt misconduct in office, and now being recodified in Government Code Section 3060. Yeah, that's a pretty amazing law in California, that they can come after any government official, charge him for corruption, willful misconduct in office, and the trial jury later on can convict and remove that corrupt government official, even a judge. People versus Ward, 1890. See, back then, people knew that they could go to a grand jury and report the corrupt government officials, like judges. And the grand jury would indict them because the government was close to us. Okay? As we got bigger cities and more ignorant of our rights, ignorant of our system of laws, we stopped doing these things. Again, that's why these cases are over 100 years old. Okay? Some of them. So, the indictment in this case was drawn under Section 750 of the Penal Code. Okay? So, basically, what they say that an accusation or indictment for corrupt misconduct in office can only be made by the grand jury. Neither the district attorney nor another prosecutor has the power to make an accusation or indictment. Only the grand jury has the accusation power, okay? Okay. And the court further said that to remove a judicial officer for misconduct in office, the act charged must have been done in discharge of judicial functions. That's right, as a judge. Not the guy walking off the street, your neighbor. As a judge, he must have done the act, and he actually can be removed. And he must be charged to have been done with corrupt, partial, malicious, or other improper motives, and with knowledge that it was wrong. Yep. Unfortunately, California, I think Nevada are the only two states that have the law this good in their system. Okay? All right. Now, as you see right here, this is cases that I'm talking about. There are here. You can read them all for yourself. Okay? These are the cases that I read to you. So this first one, for example, you see is Judge Hastings' case. Okay? Now, another thing you should know about federal laws, for example. There's a law, 18 U.S.C. sections 1503, influencing or injuring officers or jurors generally. Okay, now, this is what a lot of attorneys misunderstand the law, okay? And they tell you don't talk to grand jurors. But you can. That's not true. You can talk to grand jurors. You have a right, you have a duty under the First Amendment of the Constitution to have your redress of grievances brought to the grand juror's attention peacefully. Okay? But if you don't do it peacefully, then it could be punishment, okay? Whoever corruptly or by threats of force or by any threatening letter or communication endeavors to influence, intimidate, or impede any grand jury or particular juror or officer in any above the courts of the United States, those guys could be doing jury tampering. But again, the key was what? Corruptly, by threats of force, or by threatening letter or communication. Okay, that's the key thing. Peaceful communication around grand jurors is your right. It is not a crime whatsoever. Okay? Here is California law section 919C, by the way. This is the 919 gave us the powers of the grand jurors in California. Okay? The grand jury may inquire into the case of every person imprisoned in jail of the county on the criminal charge and not indicted. Why? Because some poor guy can sit in jail, not convicted, for months and years. Everybody forgets about him. The jailers forget about him. The grand jurors are supposed to go visit the jail just to make sure no one is being held in there wrongfully, to make sure these people who are powerless are not mistreated or abused. Okay, that's why it's been in law for a long, long time in California. Okay, that's where the B part comes in. The grand jury shall inquire into the condition and management of public prisons within the county. Right now, here's the last key part. The grand jury shall or must inquire into the willful or corrupt misconduct in office of public officers of every description within the county. This is a shall, not a may. The other one, and regular crimes, are a may inquire. Okay? But when it comes to government corruption, they shall inquire. What does that mean? That means that the bomb goes off, kills 100 people in the building, the grand jury is not required to investigate what happened there. They can if they want to, but they don't have to. But someone reports a government corruption, official, a policeman, sheriff, prosecutor, legislator, or judge is corrupt, the grand jury must investigate that. If it's just one guy, we can't have corrupt people in the office, in our government, because that corruption will spread. Okay? So that's why the grand jury has to clean it up right away by looking into that. Okay? Here's a California law, Penal Code Section 182, and many states have similar laws. If two or more persons conspire to commit any act injurious to the public health, to provide to public morals, or to pervert or obstruct justice, or the due administration of the laws, right? They are punishable. Boy, does that happen a lot in our court system. The judges and prosecutors and lying cops, they do this all the time. Okay, more often than you think. The laws are there, but we're not using them. We got to bring to attention of the grand jurors what's going on in our system of justice, which is not as just as it is supposed to be. Okay. Here's a case of a San Diego County grand jury in California. Okay, that came out in 1998-99 term. And what they did in San Diego, they actually charged Mayor of San Diego, City of San Diego, with willful misconduct in office. And you see the accusation right here. Okay, they wrote this letter to the district attorney, Paul Pfingst. Okay, accusation of misconduct in office against Susan Golding, mayor of the city of San Diego. Okay, so look, Penal Code 919C. They looked into it and they charged her and other penal crimes that they believe that she violated in here. Okay, so here it is. There's a cover letter in here about it. Okay, and count 2, and they're signing it. The foreman. This is accusation. Peter J. Gerenza signed this on behalf of the San Diego County Grand Jury, 1998-1999. By the way, I met Peter Gerenza at the time, and I was going to, what happened, by the way, the district attorney and the mayor's lawyer got with the judge, and they both said, oh, the grand jury's wrong, Judge. You know, they didn't do things right here. They did not listen to the prosecutor, the district attorney's advice. They didn't follow rules of evidence the way they should. Bunch of nonsense. The grand jurors are not bound by regular rules of evidence at all. Okay, it's not a conviction. It's only an accusation. The grand jurors do not have to listen or seek the advice of the district attorney. They instead go to the attorney general of the state or any other private person they want to get advice from. They're a completely independent body, as you saw in part 1 of this series. I educated you about the grand jurors are completely independent of the prosecutor. So what happened in this case, though, because the lawyer of the Mayor Golding and the district attorney both agreed basically that, hey, this case should go away, the crooked judge also agreed and dismissed the grand jury's accusation. Unfortunately, at that time, I was not learned in law enough timely to challenge that in the Court of Appeal. The other problem was the grand jury term was up. They're only there usually for a year. When they're not there, they no longer have what's called standing to sue. In other words, they're out of the job. They're not there anymore. They're no longer grand jurors. They're regular people. Grand jury is a temporary position. In most states, it's for 1 year, sometimes a year and a half, sometimes 2, depending on state law. Federal law is usually 18 months. So they even had no standing to challenge the dismissal of the accusation anyhow. But it showed that grand jurors can do that. And the mayor was so embarrassed, Susan Golding resigned from her position as mayor of San Diego because that tainted her image enough. So that enough did the job. She left on her own anyways. Okay, so those things do work even if they don't work the regular way that you expect it to. Here's another federal law, 18 U.S.C. 2 principles, okay? Whoever commits an offense against the United States, in other words, anybody who breaks any federal law, or aids or abets, counsels, commands, or induces, or procures its commission is punishable as a principle, okay? So you better not help anybody else to break a federal law, okay? So that is also something that a lot of the people in government do. Guess who does that a lot? The prosecutors themselves. They're part of injustice lawyers of the federal government all the time. They're going to witnesses and say, you lie because we want to get Donald Trump or somebody else. And the guy says, I can't lie because I must tell the truth. I don't want to go to prison. And the part of injustice lawyers say, don't worry, man. I am the prosecutor. I'm the one that decides to prosecute somebody or not. I'm telling you, you lied like I want you to, you're protected. Yeah, you are talking God here right now. I got God-like powers. I'm telling you, I'll make a deal with you. You lie about this guy you want to get, like Donald Trump, you're protected because I'm going to get that guy. You're not that important. On occasions, like in case of Congressman Trafficant of Ohio, a Democrat, good guy, I knew him personally. One of the witnesses that they try to intimidate to lie about Trafficant, they pressured him so much, he said, no, I will not lie. They brought false charges against him as a punishment. The jury acquitted him. There was nothing there. But that's how corrupt the government prosecutors and lawyers can be in the case of that. You know, so you saw it in Donald Trump case. They got all the January 6ers. Tell them, hey, we'll let you go. if you lie about Trump, if you say he was behind the January 6th insurrection, right? I know him, someone personally. I talked to Stuart Rhodes. They told him that. Okay? The Proud Boys defended January 6th. They told him that. You lie about Donald Trump, the DOJ will let you go. You won't even be prosecuted. And Stuart Rhodes, the Proud Boys guy, said, no, we're not going to lie. These prosecutors need to be indicted. They need to go to prison. They're not above the law, and the grand jury does have the power to do that, but they just don't know. So that's why you got to be educated. You might end up being a grand jury one day. You never know. You get called upon. Every state law on grand jury selection is a little different. Usually it's by random. Okay? Federal law is by random, federal grand juries. So you should know this in case you are called as a grand jury, or your friend gets called as a grand jury. Educate your friend about the power he or she has to clean up the government. The God there needs to be cleaned up. It's overdue. Right? Look at this California law. Government Code Section 3060. This is a law that says a government official can be fired upon conviction by a trial jury once the grand jury accuses them of corruption. An accusation in writing against any officer of a district, county, or city, including any member of a government board or personnel commission of a school district, or any human officer for willful or corrupt misconduct in office. Just about everybody. Almost. May be presented by the grand jury of the county for or in which the officer accused is elected or appointed. Okay? There it is. There it is, folks. Plain English. Now, California is so good at this, they have a special provision when the grand jury accuses the district attorney, the prosecutor, of corruption, too. Look at this. Okay? Here's Government Code Section 3073 in California. The same proceedings may be had on like grounds for removal of a district attorney, except that the accusation shall be delivered by the foreman of the grand jury to the clerk and by him to the judge of the Superior Court of the county. And here's the interesting part. The judge shall appoint a person to act as prosecuting officer in the matter. Somebody. The judge can fix any person he wants, a lawyer, somebody to prosecute, the prosecutor who is corrupt, or place the accusation in the hands of the district attorney of an adjoining county and require him to conduct the proceedings. Wow. Talking about foresight the California founders had about the government needs to be cleaned up. We want to make sure that no one is above the law. The corrupt people must be looked at by the grand jury and charged and removed upon conviction by a trial jury. Okay, so it's very clear, as you see, that no one is above the power of the grand juries. Okay, now the way you want to go for more further information is jurypower.org. Okay. Again, this website is still being built up. More will be on here. These videos will be put on this page also for you guys to become familiar with it. And if you go on the Grand Jury Power, you go down and beyond these articles you see on the first few lines. There's this book called The People's Panel by Richard D. Younger. That's right. This is a great book, the only book I know of about Grand Jury Power. Okay, it's divided in 3 different sections, chapters. And here it is, the People's Panel, okay? Grand jury in the United States. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see a little bit better, okay? 1634 to 1491, okay? Here it is. This was published in 1963. It's a great book. You can read it online for free. You can print it out if you want to, okay? This was published by Brown University. So it's a great legal essay book on the topic. Look at the just table of contents. You want to know about grand jurors, folks? It's in here. Okay? How they took over counties back over 100 years ago. They would do it late 1800s. That were corrupt and clean up the whole county government or city governments. And straighten things out. Grand juries have that power. They just don't know they have the power. It's up to you as a citizen to educate them. Okay? So next part now, we're going to get to the good stuff. How do you get to those grand jurors to report the corruption in office of the people of the government officials out there? The prosecutors, judges, police, sheriff, anybody out there, it's very important that you learn the next part, the third part, with the most powerful part of this presentation. So don't miss it. And remember, if you want to also stop filing and pay income taxes legally and safely, go to Freedom Law School's website, freedomlawschool.org. Okay, you can always call us at 813-444-4800. We're here for you to answer your questions and help you be free, and together, work together as Americans to restore freedom in America peacefully through the tools the Founding Fathers gave us, the founding documents of America, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Combined, they're the foundation of every federal, state law you have, basically. With that spirit and that intent, it's there. So learn it, study it, regain your freedom, start living free as a free American you were born to be. I come from Iran. We have no freedom there. We have no grand jury there. We have no trial jury there. We don't have due process like you have here. We don't have free speech over there like you got, like I got now, and as an American. We have to exercise those rights and those powers that God gave us, and the system's supposed to protect us. And it is still that way. That's why I can do this. For over 30 years, I've not filed and paid $1 income tax to the federal government, and openly teaching Americans like you to do the same legally and safely. The IRS has never tried to come after me. Actually, they tried, but they feel like indict me. They won't even indict me, take me before a jury to convict, because they know there's no law that requires you, me, or the people of the 50 states to file and pay federal income taxes. And because I know the law well enough that I'm going to win the jury trial, they are unable to go forward. Okay? And you'll be in the same position as me, free, with confidence, if you just educate yourself a little bit at freedomlawschool.org. Do it on your own if you want to, or get together with us and other people like yourself in our Restore Freedom Plan to be more powerful and secure together. The choice is yours. Thank you for your time. I look forward to being back with you again next week.